Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Sales Team Rescue. This is actually episode number 56. I feel like I'm aging week by week doing this show, but I love it so much. And there's so much knowledge that I get from all the awesome guests. And today will be no different. So I'm your host, Jeremy DeMerchant. And today our special guest is Jeremy Bergh. Jeremy, great name, by the way.
Thank you.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Jeremy. A previous veteran of the food industry, Jeremy held various sales and management roles in B2C and B2B companies before making the move into the technology sector in 2013. He proved himself in an outside sales role and worked his way up. Currently, he's the president of North American operations for one of the leading machine vision camera companies, IDS, Imaging Development Systems, which has its headquarters based in Germany. And he's a husband, father, coach, and generally easy to get along with guy who tends to be on the optimistic side more often than not. Jeremy, thanks so much for joining me on Sales Team Rescue.
Thank you for having me, and great name for you, by the way, as well.
Thank you. So we were introduced because a previous guest, Lorianne Mirabito, was on here, and she said, you got to talk to Jeremy and talk about the phenomenal background that you have. And your bio, I feel like, just kind of skims the surface, but there's so much more depth to you. So tell me a little bit more about your background and what brought you to the place where now you're running this team for such a large company.
Sure. So I never really knew I was going to get into the sales market. I mean, in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I took communications, which I think is what a lot of people do when they don't know what they're going to do. And I made music videos and news stories and stuff like that, and I had fun with that. And I did a minor in psychology. And I think that both those things, communications and psychology, are things that salespeople use every day, right? Absolutely. So when I got out of school, I was trying to find something that interested me, and almost played professional basketball overseas. And but anyway, I was supposed to leave on September 11th, 2001 to fly over to France, and obviously I didn't leave that day. So my friend, suggested this company, Horizon Foods. It was an outside sales position. They said you need to have a good, outgoing personality, which I guess I did. And so I started in this place in Hartford, Connecticut, and it was 100% commission, knocking on people's doors, 100 doors a day, and just trying to find, a handful of them that'll buy your products, right? Thankfully, it was really good, gourmet food, Omaha steaks and sushi grades of tuna and that kind of stuff, but it wasn't an easy sale. But long story short, I ended up being good at it and ended up being their head trainer for 8 years. And once I saw the writing on the wall that company was probably going to start going under, I left and did more of a longer sales cycle sales. And I went to a gourmet food company that did, they sold candy, cookies, things like that to the big box stores, the Kmart's, all the big, grocery store chains, and they were looking to expand their product line into convenience stores. So my goal was to get their products into major convenience store chains, and there was 60,000 convenience stores around the country. So anyway, I learned a lot there, and just picked the brains of all their top salespeople, and you just want to be a sponge and try and learn everything you can, and not come in thinking that you know everything. So was there for about 3.5 years, and I wanted to get into something more technical. I've always been interested in technology, and had a good run in the food industry, and was looking for a change and to challenge myself a little bit, and found this company on I think it was through Sales Ladders or something like that, and really hit it off with the hiring manager, who ended up moving back to Germany, where our headquarters is, and they offered me the position here, and started to work my way up. And so, long story short, I just learned as much as I could, and tried to bring value to customers, and it's paid off. So
awesome. So it's quite the series of events. I mean, if you had been on if let's just assume that the horrible events of September 11th never happened, and you were and you were going to, you said France, right?
Yeah.
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 You would have had a totally different story to tell.
Yeah, completely different. And my girlfriend at the time is now my wife. Who knows if, if that would have ever, been the case. I mean, yeah, things could have been dramatically different.
Man.
Yeah.
And
But, I consider myself lucky that that's the only way it really affected my life, right?
yeah,
Compared to others. So,
of course. Yeah. So this process you went through, this transition you went from the door knocking, which everybody loves, right? Everybody. Yeah, I hear nobody being excited. Okay.
no.
to shifting into trainer mode. Now,
Mhm.
what do you think that the biggest challenge was going from being the person on the front line doing it to being the trainer?
Well, it's hard to train people on the nuances of how to handle others' personalities and emotions very quickly, right?
Mm.
When you're going door to door, you have a very short window of approval. It's literally a few seconds before the person at the door knows whether or not they're going to be getting rid of you or not.
Right.
And it's hard to train somebody to be likable in 10 seconds. So, and not only that, but when you're by yourself and going door to door, you still have a little bit of downtime between stops. Whereas when you're training, you have to be 100% on 100% of the time throughout the day, and so that took some getting used to. But and I'm not saying I was the best trainer out there, but I did okay and brought some people in and they were successful. But definitely had some some rocky training sessions along the way.
Trials and errors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. So when you move from that into a place where you're kind of looking for distributors, right? If you're moving, helping a company get into convenience stores and they're looking for big box stores, how is that? Like, I mean, obviously it's different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But from how you approached it, what were some of the biggest differences you saw making that shift to that longer sales cycle? I mean, it is B2B versus the B2C.
Yeah.
But also that longer sales cycle. What would you say the biggest differences were, and how did you make that shift to accommodate those?
Well, it was obviously I had to get used to a lot more emailing and phone calls than I had to previously, and sitting behind a desk for most of the day instead of being active. But besides that, it is a different game getting involved with a lot of the red tape and the politics that are involved in larger organizations and the 7-Elevens and special Circle K's and all those of the world. Tim Hortons up by you, right?
Yes, you got it. Yep.
And so yeah, that definitely took some getting used to. But I had some good people at the company who I learned a lot from, and I think I adapted fairly quickly, and but overall, it definitely took a lot of getting used to adjust to that longer sales cycle and the politics of it.
The politics. Tell me a little bit more about the politics without getting into specific examples, but
sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, at home there's an easy political chain that you can work with, right? There's typically a husband and a wife, and who's pulling the strings and making the decisions most of the time. It's an easy chain to figure out. But when you're working with a company with so many different layers of, and it's not always the same way in terms of who makes the decisions in the organization, right? Sometimes you get companies where you think you're dealing with, the president or the decision maker, but maybe they are the ones who make all the decisions, but sometimes they rely so heavily on a committee of people, and you have to really get into their ears and make sure that they understand your value proposition as well.
Gotcha. Now, I want to ask a specific question here. When you took over your current role, you came from being on the team to leading the team, right?
Yep.
And I don't think we've talked about this at all after 55 previous episodes. I don't think we've ever talked about this interesting, challenging, sometimes awkward transition from being part of the team to leading the team. And I know for me in my past careers, that was a big thing because I found myself on a few different occasions being some of my best friends' boss.
Yeah.
It's really weird. So talk a little bit about that for you.
Yeah. Yeah, so it definitely was a little bit awkward at first because I didn't want to, because yeah, I mean, we were on an equal level, me and the sales team, and we were friends, and we went out and did, different, sales calls and trips together as equals, and now all of a sudden, I'm responsible for, their salary and things of that nature. And so it definitely was a little bit awkward, but I tried to make it as easy as of a transition as possible. And I'm not a leader with an iron fist. There's almost everything that happens, I bring everybody in and I have open conversations with them, and we go through and we help make decisions together, that makes sense for the entire organization and the team as a whole. So I think that made it easier than me just coming on and starting to call shots on things.
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of the biggest things for people that make that transition is the communication, right? Going from, hey guys, let's do this, and part of the team, and then when you become the leader, you need to decide: am I still going to be a let's go do this, which I think is the preferred approach?
Yeah.
Says, guys, go do this. This
Right.
is got to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could give one tip, and maybe it's what we just talked about, but one tip for anyone watching that is in that leadership role now and is now the boss to people that were their peers, were their teammates before, what do you think the secret is to being, because right now you're having great success, the team is rocking, and Lorianne was bragging you up like crazy. But before you get to that point of success, there's these stepping stones that you need to go through, and that transition, I'm going to guess, was a big deal. So what would you recommend to somebody who's just made that transition into that leadership role and is now leading the team that they used to be a part of?
Well, I would say just to have open conversations with each person on the team, and let them know that, especially if they have hidden concerns, you want to try and bring those to the surface and try and overcome those sooner than later, because the more those concerns are not taken care of, the more they're going to cause some friction that can potentially lead to as they say, a cancer in the organization. And you can get lower motivation, lower output in the long run if you don't take care of those things early.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. Like I would kind of second that the communication is so key, because if you come in and feel like you're taking over, suddenly the people that were, maybe best friends with you are suddenly resisting, only purely because it doesn't feel right.
Right.
So when everyone's on side and you can align their goals, their personal goals, with your business goals, and it make things a lot easier. Awesome.
True.
So now where you're at, you're running a team that's not just a sales team. You got inbound team, you've got inside sales team and outside sales team, I think you mentioned.
Yep. And then we have a couple of applications engineers here, and office manager, accounting. So we have a good little squad.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So what do you think the secret to success is when it comes to running a team or teams that are so different? Because outside sales reps and inside sales reps, although they have the similar common goal, they're typically different personalities and definitely different job descriptions.
True.
How do you find that? What difference do you find in managing those two different teams?
Well, I think it's there's a lot of trust that has to be involved there, right? You got to make sure you have the right people on your team leading those teams, and thankfully I'm in a good place where I feel like we do. And if there isn't a good fit somewhere, I have to rely on those who know those processes in their specific zone better than I do to help me get through this and help us make the right change, right? So I do put a lot of trust in the different components of our team that I don't where I don't have that as much experience, right? Which so far has worked out well for us. A lot of times when you give people the responsibility and the trust, they do good things with that, right? Whereas on the other side, if you're constantly putting your thumb on their neck and trying to figure out what they're doing every second of the day, they're not going to really give you the output that you want.
Yeah, no, and I think you're bang on. We've heard the stories of managers or leaders that say, I'm not asking you to do anything that I haven't or wouldn't do.
Right.
But the reality is sometimes we're asked to lead teams that we are not as experienced in.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
and a lot of people, I think, take that for granted, but it sounds like you've got things really dialed in, and you know that the goal isn't that you have to know things better than the team. You just need to empower them to the level that they'll move forward and do what they need to do to get the job done, whether it's to support you and your goals or them and their goals.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to give that little bit of autonomy, right?
Right.
To do the thing and not feeling like you're hovering over their shoulder. I think
True.
it's huge. So that's probably one of the secrets to your success right there.
Maybe. Who knows? I think there's got to be some luck involved too. But
so you're such a modest guy. So guys, when I reached out when my team reached out to Jeremy for his bio, he says, I don't really love doing it because I'm a modest guy and it's kind of bragging. But and I think that modesty is also what makes you so likable. So makes it easy to connect with you, and so people can trust you, right? They know that you're not out to just check off a box on your scorecard,
right?
Hold the trophy up yourself. You want the wins for the whole team.
True.
And you're okay not being the one that knows everything.
Right. And I don't need to take credit for everything either.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest, I guess, caveats and their biggest differences between leaders and managers.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a firm believer my entire life that when something goes wrong with my team, I'm the blame, and when something goes right, they get the credit.
True, that's a good way of doing it.
And because otherwise, what's the point? Because you can handle when things go sideways, right? That's literally your job, right? To handle it. But when things go well, I mean, the people that matter know that you helped do it. But if you can make your team feel like they're on cloud nine when they get the win, they're going to be hunting after their next win.
Right. Agreed.
So that's huge. So if you could give us, so I want to hear, I'm going to put you on the spot. Sorry.
No.
I want to hear you give, because I want to give a plug for your company. So I'm going to put their link up here. And it is ids-imaging.us. I'm going to pop that on the screen. We'll get that put in the notes as well.
Perfect.
And tell us a little bit about the company. Like why should the audience go and check them out? Because they're awesome. But I want to hear exactly how that lands with the audience. Go ahead.
Well, it's definitely kind of a niche market that we work with. Our company manufactures cameras at our headquarters in Germany, but they're not the point and shoot, Nikon cameras that you're going to buy for your own consumer use. They're basically the eyes for any kind of system that has to be connected to a computer, usually. So robots, drones, satellites, medical devices. I'm a technology geek, so I get to play with a lot of really cool companies and some cutting edge technology that they're designing our cameras as the eyes for their system. So for me, it's something new every day, and I really enjoy it. And we make some really high quality products. German companies are known for their quality engineering. So
absolutely.
And there's some good competition out there, but we have a really strong team of hardware and software engineers, and we make some cool 2D, 3D, and it's all sorts of cameras, software, and now we just started our foray into AI and neural networks too. So we have a camera where you can easily train a neural network and have it basically running it right on camera. And even if you don't know how to train it, typically we created something where it's super easy to get into the game. So if you have any people out there that are listening that are working for companies that are designing new devices or new products where it needs eyes, that's probably the way they would be looking for companies like ours.
Perfect. Awesome. So before we dive into the lightning round, which I have a lot of fun with, but before we get in there, what would you say your biggest challenge has been throughout your sales career, getting to the point of running these teams? What's been the biggest challenge?
Well, I think I'm not great at delivering tough news. those difficult conversations that you have to have as a leader. I've never been great at those because I like people, and I usually give them the benefit of the doubt. But sometimes, sometimes people need to be let go, and so that's something I've always struggled with. And but I find that it's something I have to do, and so you can always work at getting better at something, right? But
Yeah.
and then also, when it comes to managing my time, there's always certain tasks that need to be done that I really don't want to do. Whether or not it's a difficult conversation, maybe it's just something that really is not gonna be fun. It's gonna be tedious. But if it's important, I try to put those first and handle those things. I don't know if that answers your
Yeah,
question, but
absolutely. And so if you had, and I like the productivity, the getting things done side, because I know, like, I started as a sales guy, and I moved into sales management and now building sales teams for other companies.
Nice.
My challenge is always the admin side. Like,
Mm.
I'm so bad that when I do follow-ups with people, or when I have a call book with somebody, I have my VA, who you get introduced to, Lori. She goes in as me into my CRM and sends the reminder emails the night before.
Nice.
Because I'm like, I'm done for the day. I put in my time, and if you think about it, it's 10 o'clock at night, so it's just part of her task now.
Smart.
But I've got to delegate it because I won't do it, or I won't say I won't do it, but it's a challenge, right? It feels like one of those heavy tasks. So what tips or advice or recommendations do you have for other people that are in that place where running a team or even just doing the sales calls? And I shouldn't say just, because doing the sales calls at the front line, it's the the bread and butter. But for people that are have that personality, that being in the conversations, being engaged with people, that are really fueled by that engagement, and then they find the administrative or other tasks really tedious. What things have you done that have helped make it a little bit easier? What recommendations would you make to somebody that might be in a similar spot?
Well, this is one thing where we have a guy in our organization he knows our systems inside and out, right? So constantly, as a topic on our agenda when we have our meetings, is what can we be more efficient at? What tedious tasks can we automate somehow? So we're always trying to get rid of those tasks that just drive people crazy, and figure out a good way to automate it. And we don't always do a good job of it. There's sometimes 4 or 5 iterations before we get it right, and sometimes we just realize this can't be automated. Somebody's going to have to do it, and and then we try and find out who the most junior person is, and they usually get stuck.
I got a buddy that's doing a video summit right now, and he's got a T-shirt that says "Version done is better than version none."
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's solid.
I like that one.
Yeah. Awesome. So I love that question though. You asked, what can we do to, or where can we be more efficient, and how can we automate it? That's right. That's great, and it's so simple but so powerful. So thank you for sharing. I'm sure the audience can, everybody, no matter what the role is, they can take that and say, okay, how do we make our lives easier by doing it?
Right. True.
Now, Jeremy, I want to dive into the lightning round. This is my favorite part, and it's to know a little bit more about you. So, question number 1 of the lightning round. We know coffee is for closers. So what is your favorite coffee or comparable drink?
Man, sometimes I hate to admit it, but I do love myself a good Starbucks coffee.
Nothing wrong with Starbucks.
I love a good dark roast, or we have an espresso machine here. Those little pods, those are pretty good. So I'll have a nice espresso or a good dark roast coffee. That's my go-to. Awesome.
Love it. What's one movie or book that you would recommend to a sales leader, and why?
For negotiation wise, I think Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is a good one. And Getting to Yes by, I think it's Robert Fisher and William Ury. Those are good negotiation ones. Influence by Robert Cialdini. And The Power of Focus by Jack Canfield. I think those are the top 4 books I'd probably recommend.
Love it. Love it. Great books. Who is somebody that you would consider to be a mentor in your life?
Well, There's a couple, I think. I'm a big believer that there's everyone I meet knows something, more than more than I do about something. So I'm always trying to learn from people. But my dad, my college coach, was really good at not only pushing me to getting more out of me than I thought I had in me physically, but also he was a big proponent in making sure that you get your studies done, and those are first and foremost. So I consider him a mentor. Uh, Bob Venora, who was a guy who taught me a lot at Horizon Foods, the door-to-door business.
Right.
And then the guy who hired me here, who ended up he was so good at running our U.S. office, ended up going back and they made him the managing director at our headquarters. So, yeah, I think those are the four that come to mind.
Awesome. Awesome. And the final question of the lightning round, and the most fun, is what is the strangest thing you do in your daily routine to keep you on your game?
Oh, daily. Well, I don't do it daily, but I definitely started mixing in yoga, for mental and physical clarity, at least once a week. So, and some people consider that strange, but I like it.
You were not the first one to mention yoga for that question. Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much. That is the end of the lightning round. And guys, I think that there are so many pieces that I took from this conversation, but is there anything that you want to leave the audience with as far as advice or recommendations? People that are listening are either trying to grow their first sales team or they're trying to expand an existing sales team, and often listening from that leadership role.
Yeah, I would say, really include your team in on a lot of the big conversations. Include them in on the conversation, because if they feel like they're part of the solution, they'll be more dialed into to the changes that are made moving forward. But if you just spring something on them and expect them all to just change their mind like that and move forward without any hitches, you're probably in for an awakening.
Amazing. And I agree 100%. That's phenomenal advice. And I know it's a part that a lot of managers struggle with. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This has been Jeremy Bergh joining us, full of gold nuggets of genius and wisdom from running sales teams. And this has been Sales Team Rescue. And guys, you guys watching live, thank you so much for being here. Those of you listening to the podcast or watching the replay, thank you so much. And guys, be sure to go to salesteamrescue.com to catch the replays, to get a link to join us for our next episode. And if you want your sales team blueprinting session with me, go to salesteamrescue.com as well, and we can book that at no cost to you. We will see you next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here in Headspace TV. Remember, guys, get uncomfortable, get results. Cheers.